Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. I welcome you all to a daily quiz video for today. Before we begin, reminding you, tomorrow, that is Wednesday, 30th of November at 7 p.m., we have a live workshop for all of you at the Byju's Exam Prep app where we will be discussing the merits of a career in the civil services. If you're someone who is planning or who is just on the age of deciding whether or not to prepare for the civil services, this free workshop is just the right thing for you. Make sure you use the link given in the description of the video to register for the workshop. This is tomorrow, live 7 p.m., where you will get to ask all your doubts to the faculty as well. Now, let's begin with question number 1 on your screen. Consider the following statements with regards to ordinances. Number 1. Ordinances may be promulgated only both the houses of the parliament are not in session. Second, in R.C. Cooper case 1970, the Supreme Court held that President's decision to promulgate ordinance could be challenged on the grounds that immediate action was not required, and the ordinance had been issued primarily to bypass debate and discussion in the legislature. Third, Article 1, 2, 3 places no numeric limits on the ordinances. How many of these given statements is or are correct? Now, as you know, ordinances are special executive powers given to the president and to the governor. That is, if the legislature is not in session, even if one of the houses is not in session, they may promulgate the ordinance. Now, this means that the first statement is wrong because at least one of the houses of the parliament should not be in session and not both. Second statement is true. The Supreme Court has been asked this question time and time again about the validity of the ordinances, and the court has said ordinances would only be valid if the president is convinced that immediate action was required and the government could not wait for the legislature to come back to session. Third statement is also true. There is no numeric limit, as in how many times an ordinance can come in on the same issue. It has not been written anywhere in the constitution. Thus, the correct answer would be B. Two statements here are correct. The reason why we are discussing this question is because Tamil Nadu government's ordinance on prohibition of online gambling and regulation of online games ordinance has expired, because as you know, after the governor or the president's assent, when the assembly comes back in the session, within 6 weeks they would have to vote on it and they would have to pass it for it to actually become a permanent law. Just like Article 123 talks about President's power to promulgate ordinances, Article 213 talks about the governor's powers to promulgate such ordinances. Question number 2. Consider the following statements with regards to India's stand on Israel-Palestine issue. Number 1. In 2019, India voted in favor of Israel at the ECOSOC, that is Economic and Social Council, to deny the observer status to a Palestinian organization named Shahid. Second, in 1947, the United Nations adopted Resolution 181, known as the Partition Plan, which sought to divide the British Mandate of Palestine into Arab and Jewish states. Third, in 2017, India's Prime Minister visited only Israel and not Palestine. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D. All the three given statements here are correct. We have seen in the past few years, India's policy towards Israel and Palestine has shifted drastically. Earlier, we used to ensure that there is a quite balance between Israel and Palestine issues when it comes to India. So whenever our Prime Minister or any leader used to go to the region, we used to make it a point to visit both the places. But in 2017, there was a drastic shift when India's Prime Minister only visited Israel and not Palestine, and it was actually seen as a big statement of India trying to come closer to Israel and making a distance from Palestine and its demands for having their own state altogether. First and the second statements are also correct. The first statement also is an example of India moving towards Israel, while the second statement also is correct about how the partition plan came into being. All these three given statements are correct. The reason why we are discussing this question is in today's Indian Express newspaper, there is an editorial on how India and Palestine still have a lot of commonalities, and India should not just let go of its stand on Palestine. India has supported Palestine for a long time for its independence. It is also an indication of India's anti-colonial legacy, and just because you want to come close to Israel doesn't really mean that we should actually let go of Palestine's issue. The author here says that Mahatma Gandhi also had said it is wrong and inhuman to impose the Jews on the Arabs. What is going on in Palestine today cannot be justified by any moral code of conduct. Even India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru spoke about this issue multiple times in favor of Palestine. Next, question number 3. Which of the following days is observed as a red planet day? The day NASA launched Mariner 4 space mission towards Mars. Second, the day NASA Curiosity rover landed on Mars. Third, the day NASA's Viking 1 landed on Mars. Or fourth, the day NASA released first ever photos of the Martian surface. The correct answer here to this question is actually A. This was the day that NASA's Mariner 4 space mission was launched towards Mars. As you know, red planet is also a name given to Mars specifically. This is observed on November 28th. That is why it is covered in the newspaper today. November 28th is a red planet day that commemorates one of the most significant space missions launched to Mars. On this day, 1964, NASA launched the space probe Mariner 4 towards Mars. This was the first time that a spacecraft undertook a flyby of the red planet. Mariner flew past Mars in July 1965, becoming the first ever spacecraft to take up close photographs of any other planet. Next, question number 4. Saras 3, recently seen in the news, refers to number 1, a sonar used for high end sea navigation. Second, India's deep ocean research vessel. Third, a radio telescope trying to discover radio wave signals from cosmic dawn. Or fourth, a specially designed speaker to catch the cosmic sound. The correct answer here is C. It is a radio telescope that is floating right now on a water body trying to discover radio wave signals from the cosmic dawn. This news was covered in the Hindu newspaper today. Saras 3, built by the Raman Research Institute in Bangalore, has been deployed at the Shravati River. This is a radio telescope designed and built to actually give clues about universe's first stars and the galaxies. The data collected from this mission has been used by astronomers and researchers to determine the properties of radioluminous galaxies formed just 200 million years after the Big Bang took place. This is also called the cosmic dawn. So, cosmic dawn in itself is actually a time period. Do remember that as well. As we discussed, this mission has been designed and built by the Raman Research Institute, known as the RRI. Next is a previous year question from 2018. What is or are the consequence or the consequences of a country becoming the member of Nuclear Suppliers Group? Number 1, it will have access to the latest and most efficient nuclear technologies. And second, it automatically becomes a member of the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, that is NPT. Which of these given statements is or are correct? Now, if you are aware of how the Indian government has been trying to get a membership of the NSC, this question will become very, very easy for you. As you know, India has always been against being a part of the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, because this is a treaty that differentiates between two types of countries. One that had nuclear weapons before 1967 and the ones that got those weapons after this year. Since India comes in the second category and we would be forced to surrender all these weapons, we have always been against the NPT. On the other hand, India has always wanted to be a member of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. So, if membership of NSG would automatically mean India will be a part of NPT, then India would never have been wanting to become the part of the Nuclear Supplier Group. The first statement is correct. If we become a part of the NSG, India would have access to latest and the most efficient nuclear technologies, but we won't automatically become a member of the NPT. That is wrong. So the answer here becomes A. One is correct, second is wrong, because India, as you know, has never been a supporter of the NPT. Next, we have a fact of the day from Indian Express newspaper, and today I wanted to discuss about what exactly is the Department of Telecommunication planning for the 5G rollout. Now, across the entire world, ever since 5G rollout has been in the talks, there is a major concern for governments around the world. The concern is especially near the airports. So, the long story is that when you talk about commercial flights, these airplanes use a very, very important machine called the altimeter. Altimeter is a device that is used in all the aircrafts that actually tells the aircraft the height that they have above the ground. So, how many feet or meters are they above the ground? When you go on a flight and you see the pilot actually making an announcement, we are flying 30,000 feet above the ground or 40,000 feet above the ground, that is a reading that they get from the altimeter. So now what happens is altimeter is very, very important, especially when it comes to takeoff and landing of the flight. Now, the issue here is that altimeter used in these aircrafts works at almost the same frequency as a 5G networks would work. So, setting up all these antennas, setting up all these infrastructure for 5G nearby the airports is now expected to interfere in the working of the altimeter. This is a problem that not just India but nations around the world are facing. The airlines industry working in the civil aviation field are against any of the 5G infrastructure being placed anywhere near the airports. While on the other hand, the telecom companies don't like that. They obviously want the coverage to be given to their customers across the entire city, across the entire country. Now, to resolve this issue, the Department of Telecommunication has said that they will be coming up with some detailed guidelines about how to avoid this interference. As I said, the primary concern is that these altimeters that form a part of the essential components of the plane actually work in the mid C band frequency range, the same frequency range that is being used by 5G operators as well around the entire city. Now, Western nations such as US, France, etc., they have already decided not to set up any of the 5G infrastructure nearby the airports. It remains to be seen how India, under the Department of Telecommunication, actually takes this policy forward. This is it for today's Daily Quiz video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day ahead.